Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the L. Douglas Wilder School of Government and Public Affairs at VCU, welcome to June's Wilder School Lunch and Learn. We are thrilled to have you join us for today's special session, Fueling the Future of Workforce Development, featuring Shannon Pierce, President and CEO of Virginia Natural Gas, and our moderator, Jason Burkett, Senior Research Analyst for the Center for Public Policy here at the Wilder School. First off, welcome. We're glad you're here. Our free monthly virtual events spark meaningful conversations and connect you with leaders in our community. And so we're glad that you're able to join policymakers and visionaries as we discuss pressing issues of the day. My name is Stephen Dozier. I'm the Senior Director of Development here at the Wilder School. And before we get started, I have a few exciting updates for you. If you're considering pursuing grad school, be sure to mark your calendar. The final deadline for applications to the fall 2025 Wilder School Master's Program is July 1st. Don't let this opportunity to advance your academic journey pass you by. If you know anyone who might be interested, please feel free to share this information with them. There's more information in the chat. The spring 2025 edition of the Wilder School in Action magazine announces the launch of Governor L. Douglas Wilder's library and digital collection with Virginia Union University. It features our largest cohort in the Virginia Capital Semester Program, highlights faculty research, celebrates alumni like Richmond City Council member Sarah Abu Baker, and this issue also honors the late Dr. Richard Huff and Dr. Blue Woolridge for their significant leadership and impact on the Wilder School community. There's always something exciting happening at the Wilder School. Please refer to the links in the chat for more information. And without further ado, I introduce Dr. Susan Gooden, our Dean. Floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephen. Welcome everyone to the June Lunch and Learn. I'm looking forward to, and I just wanted to share our 2025 rankings from U.S. News and World Report. Among over 300 public affairs programs nationally, we rank in the top 15%. We're top in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're proud to be the #1 ranked program in public affairs in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And our Homeland Security and Emergency Management program is ranked #6 in the nation for the second consecutive year. So we're really proud of the work that our faculty, staff, students, and alumni are doing. And we hope that you share our pride as well in terms of continuing to be the best in public affairs education. And with that, I will introduce the moderator for today's session, Jason Burkett, who serves as a senior research analyst in our Center for Public Policy. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you. Excited to be moderating today's discussion, and I have the great pleasure of introducing Shannon Pierce. So we were joking, this is something of a long bio, but I felt like it is worth every penny. So please enjoy the catalog here, because I think when we get time to audience questions, you may have questions about the many various activities that Ms. Pierce operates in. So I will dive right in here. Shannon Pierce is President and CEO of Virginia Natural Gas, a subsidiary of Southern Company Gas. She previously served as Vice President, Strategy and Chief Administrative Officer at Virginia Natural Gas, having returned to her native Commonwealth to work for the company in the fall of 2023. So Pierce is responsible for the delivery of clean, safe, and reliable natural gas service to over 310,000 customers in southeastern Virginia. And in addition, Pierce serves as Senior Vice President of Southern Company Gas. Pierce's involvement in the community and professional associations includes membership in the Virginia State Bar, the American Association of Blacks in Energy, and the Workforce Development Executive Council of the Center for Energy Workforce Development. Pierce is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and she currently serves on the boards of the Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the Elizabeth River Project, the Hampton Roads Executive Business Roundtable, RVA 757 Connects, and the Blueprint Virginia 2035 Steering Committee. Additionally, she is a member and former board member of the Energy Bar Association Southern Chapter, where she previously served as president. She also has served on boards for various nonprofit organizations focusing on education and economic equity. Pierce began her career as a lawyer with McGuire Woods in Richmond, Virginia, a fine town. Since joining Southern Company Gas in 2004, Pierce has held leadership roles with increasing responsibility in legal, regulatory, and external affairs, and commercial and utility operations. Pierce was honored in 2023 as an Atlanta Business Chronicle leader in corporate citizenship, in 2020 as one of Quad County and Illinois' Urban League's Women of Power, as one of Atlanta Business League's 2017 and 2023 100 Women of Influence, and named as one of Atlanta Business Chronicle's 2014 40 Under 40. So she is a member of the 2015 class of Leadership Georgia and a 2018-19 fellow at the International Women's Forum Foundation Leadership Fellows Program, which includes executive education at Harvard Business School and INSEAD, which is in France. Pierce is a member of LEAD, Virginia class of 2024. So Pierce received both of her undergraduate and law degrees from University of Virginia, which is a little school in Charlottesville. They've put together something very impressive over there if you haven't swung by. And she is an emeritus member of the Board of Managers for the Alumni Association. She has also undergone extensive executive education at Northwestern Kellogg School of Management Executive Education Program. So that is a long intro, as we joked about, but it's very exciting to be spending lunch with you, Shannon. So I will turn it over to you now and let you take it from there.
Thank you, Jason, and good afternoon, everyone. It is truly an honor to be here today, and thank you to the Wilder School for giving us the opportunity to share this important conversation on how industries can support the power of education and job readiness to transform lives. Our team at Virginia Natural Gas works each day to be a citizen in the communities that we have the privilege to serve. And we truly believe that it's important for us to have impact beyond our bottom line. And for us, collaboration and partnerships are key to finding innovative solutions to solving problems and to elevate communities. And this is why I am thrilled that Josh Jones, an innovator and CEO and co-founder of Neighborhood, is joining me today for this conversation. Josh Jones is CEO and co-founder of Neighborhood, an economic empowerment nonprofit. He and his wife, along with their 4 boys, have lived in South Norfolk neighborhood in Chesapeake for the past 18 years. Josh is deeply committed to the flourishing of underserved communities and works to create real pathways to opportunity through hands-on engagement, advocacy, and bold partnerships. Neighborhood is a bold, innovative workforce development solution reshaping economic opportunity in our region. They bridge the gap between overlooked talent in underserved communities and the employers who urgently need a stronger, more equitable workforce. Through a 6-month experience rooted in identity transformation, industry-aligned skill building, and life-changing relationships, they prepare adults not just for jobs, but for careers that offer stability, dignity, and generational opportunity. We have a short video that highlights some of Neighborhood's impact.
I wanted to be a lawyer when I grew up. I really wanted to be a lawyer or paralegal, somewhere in the justice field. I ended up having children, got into a couple of bad relationships, and just lost focus. I couldn't earn the money that I wanted to earn. I had previously been in the shelter with my children for domestic violence.
We are an economic empowerment nonprofit that is ensuring that the income of every family in Hampton Roads surpasses the cost of living within our lifetime. Phase 1 is personal development. They get 6 weeks of day classes where they are looking at resiliency and conflict resolution and resume writing and interview skills. Phase 2 of the program is what we call skill development. Our program participants receive a full tuition scholarship towards credentialed training in a career field that will give them career advancing opportunities. And then phase 3 of the program is our career launch, where our staff is regularly working with incredible regional employment for individuals to land living wage careers and above.
This was the first job in my lifetime that I've ever been promoted on. I'm now the regional family case manager for the whole 757. Neighborhood helped me grow into the unbreakable person that I am.
Virginia Natural Gas has been one of those organizations that I believe is on the forefront of community development in Hampton Roads. For every dollar that comes into the neighborhood, we put $5 back into our community. And so large-scale investments like Virginia Natural Gas is doing is making large-scale impact throughout our region.
Hey, Josh.
Hi, Shannon.
Thank you for joining me for this important conversation. I cannot watch that video without always feeling incredibly inspired and moved every time I watch it. And so I am thrilled to share this story with this audience today. So let's dive in.
Let's do it. I'm looking forward to it.
So I share that neighborhood is innovative in its approach. What impact has neighborhood and its program had on the community and its participants thus far? And what makes neighborhood different from a typical program?
Yeah, great question. I would start by saying that I think a lot of workforce development systems, and I would even say employer pathways, are built with the hope that people will find their way into them. And Shannon, as you know, that hope is not a strategy. In fact, I think it's the worst kind of design for unleashing the full potential of low-income communities. And so specifically here in Hampton Roads, but I think this is true across the state of Virginia. I think this would be true nationally. I think we stand at a crossroads where on one side, you have thousands of individuals who are eager to work, but are locked out of opportunity. And you have on the other side, employers who are struggling, desperate for skilled, reliable workers to kind of fill those critical roles. And I think that that disconnect isn't just unfortunate. I think it's like a structural failure. And I think it's costing us dearly for our economy, for our businesses and our families. I think this is a crisis that we really can't afford to ignore. For decades, these workforce programs have treated the symptoms and not often the root causes. And so what happens is they train people, but rarely connect them to the actual hiring pipelines, or they'll offer skills, but not to networks. And so they just don't really offer a lot of financial, or they don't really address, I would say, the financial instability or the long-term career support that's needed. So what happens is even the most capable of individuals often stay stuck. And so these workforce models that often weren't built for those who are locked out, they weren't built to remove those hidden barriers. I think what we do at Neighborhood that's innovative and what is moving forward is that we're building something very different. We're building what I would say is an economic superhighway that connects overlooked talent to the leading employers, regional employers, and creating these on-ramps designed for people, not just for positions. And so I would say, our impact is that our graduates aren't just getting jobs. They are entering the workforce. They are entering these new careers with clarity and confidence and coaching behind them. And I think employers then are gaining access to a pool of talent that's ready for work, ready for growth, and ready to stay. And I would say that is not a charity model. I think that's smart workforce strategy.
I love it. So how did you get into this work? And did you have an aha moment that said the models that are in place aren't working and we can do something differently?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I would just say, neighborhood's origin really came out of just a very organic lifestyle inside of a low-income community. My wife and I moved into a low-income community, roughly 19 years ago. And a lot of our just living in the neighborhood helped us realize, there is so much work that goes in to helping individuals while they are experiencing poverty. But we were really looking for the systems, the structures that help move people out of poverty, which really took us into the world of workforce development, and then began realizing that a lot of that workforce development work wasn't actually connecting to the communities that we loved and lived in and served in. And so there was this big disconnect that was just kind of all over the place. And so, we kept hearing from employers, we can't find and we can't retain quality talent, and then our neighbors and those that we love were ready and hungry for work. And so there was this giant, what I would call as a tragic gap, that these two worlds are not finding each other, and that's just bad for both sides. As we know, the poverty level isn't just going to stay the same; it's going to get worse if we don't address these problems. And our economic development for our region and our state and nationally consistently struggles. And I think we have an answer for that in these communities.
So Josh, I've heard you talk about creating seismic shifts and opportunity. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means and how do you accomplish that?
Yeah, I would say, a lot of these workforce models, as I was kind of mentioning, they often say that they are built for people, but I think most of them still expect people to adjust to the system. And so what we're doing is that we need to flip that. And so we design systems that adjust to people, starting with the realities that they're living in, not the assumptions that maybe employers are working from. And I think the impact of doing that flip is transformational, because we're not just placing people into roles, we're actually reshaping the way hiring happens throughout Hampton Roads. And so we're making proximity and equity and lived experience now a part of the hiring equation. And I think it's working. Our participants, many of whom have been kind of locked out of opportunity for years, are now entering these career paths that align with their potential, not just their past. And I think it's a seismic shift, that it's a new workforce pipeline that's being built, not really around pedigree, but around partnerships. And I think if we scale this across the region and across the state, we don't just fill jobs, we are going to reshape the economic future of Hampton Roads and beyond. And I would say that neighborhood, we activate an entire workforce that's been overlooked, undervalued, and really underestimated for decades.
I love the name of your organization, Neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hear you say is, we often talk about the workforce as if the workforce is just anonymous, just blank faces, but they're people. And the workforce, the workforce are our neighbors. And I really like the concept of neighborhood being very people-centric and thinking about life experience and leveraging life experience when oftentimes life experience could be seen as a limiting factor. That's good stuff, Josh.
Yeah,
So,
appreciate that.
so tell me about the future plans that you have. What's your vision for neighborhood down the road? How do you see neighborhood growing and the impact it will have in the future?
Yeah, the future is so bright. Neighborhood is not just a program. I would say that it's a workforce infrastructure. And through, we're getting ready to launch, or we have just launched what we're calling our Economic Access Initiative. And we're leading a $4.2 million regional expansion to really build a direct and reliable bridge between untapped talent and employers that are struggling to fill critical roles. And for us, the future looks like scaling in kind of three primary ways for us. Internally, we're increasing our class sizes, we're expanding the number of cohorts that we offer, and then placing training hubs inside of underserved neighborhoods to really eliminate the barriers of like transportation and access. So internally, that's a big focus for us. On the training side, on the certification side, we're building clear credentialed career pathways that combine technical instruction with coaching and real world preparation so that our program participants are really truly ready to work and then stay employed. And then thirdly, and I think this is huge on the employer side, we're partnering with companies to improve the hiring pipelines. We're rethinking job descriptions, background check policies, onboarding practices that really align with today's workforce realities. And so together, what I think this does is it creates a coordinated system that connects people to the jobs and the employers to the talent that they need efficiently, reliably, and at scale. That's where we're headed over the next few years.
That's awesome. Before we turn it over for questions, do you have any advice for those who are listening in on this conversation? Any advice for them on how they, one, can identify partners to do this work, but also if organizations are using the more traditional models that you talked about, the first steps to start to make that shift? You've been doing this for a while now, but how do you get started?
That's a great question. We'll talk maybe a little bit more about this with Jason, but I would just kind of start right now by saying, for businesses looking to move more into this kind of training and workforce development, it takes more than just writing a check. I think it really takes showing up at the table where workforce systems are being built and then helping and being a part of the conversation in designing them. And in a lot of ways, Shannon, that's really what I appreciate so much about Virginia Natural Gas, because that's what you're doing with neighborhood. And so a lot of companies will oftentimes wait until the job is open and then hope the right candidate shows up. That is not a pipeline. That's a pipe dream. That pipe dream oftentimes becomes a bottleneck, and it's not good strategy. And so I think businesses looking at where on the ground, deep, holistic workforce development is happening, and then getting to the table with those groups and begin building together is where the win is at.
Excellent. So Josh, I could talk with you all day, but
Love it.
we do want to open it up for questions. So Jason, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Hi, Jason.
Hello, no, thank you so much. I loved hearing that and the two of you talking together. I know we are beginning to solicit questions from the chat and the audience, so please submit those. But I'm going to go first because wanted to buy you a bit of time. But two, I've been wanting to. I've had the pleasure of meeting Josh slightly before, so we've had a chance to a bit talk about neighborhood, which was fantastic. And I wanted to wait until now to say, how did you find each other? Like, how did you meet each other? Because it does seem like a match made in heaven. And I'd love to hear the story.
Josh, you want to go first?
Sure. For years in our work here throughout Hampton Roads, our region, as I'm presenting and sharing about this type of workforce development, I've had so many people telling me, are you working with Virginia Natural Gas yet? Like this, what you're saying is what they're saying. That's what they want to do. And so through a mutual connection, got connected with their staff. Their staff connected me with Shannon. And it was like this introduction was happening before I had actually met Shannon. So that's kind of how I got connected with them.
And so first I must say that this work around economic empowerment and workforce development, it's more than just business for me. It's truly a personal passion of mine, and I find additional purpose in this work. And I'm really proud to work for a company and to lead a company that's committed to economic empowerment. Because at Virginia Natural Gas, we believe that a strong workforce not only supports a thriving economy, but access to opportunities in great industries like ours can change lives for the better. And for us, it's not just about having a strong workforce for our company. We really are committed to supporting a strong and highly skilled workforce across our region of Hampton Roads, but also the Commonwealth. And so when we were developing our workforce development strategy and trying to figure out who are the organizations out there that are really having an impact around workforce development and economic empowerment, my team introduced me to Neighborhood. And so I met Neighborhood before I met Josh. And I was immediately impressed by the work of Neighborhood. And then I had a chance to have a conversation with Josh, and I was really drawn not only to his passion, but his innovative mindset. And he's very strategic in his approach. And, he truly lives that hope is not a strategy. And that really got me very excited about being a part of a partnership with Neighborhood to advance this work.
Yes, thank you. That's fantastic. And yeah, I was kind of joking before about your whole bio, Shannon, but I agree. I think what you're saying like really echoes that this is like it's a passion on both of your ends, and so I think that's great. Kind of hopping back to what you were saying earlier, Josh, is the question around like how organizations can get involved, and like what you're sort of looking for from them. I think that question sort of, I'd love to hear the two of you maybe talk a bit more about what it takes, because the times that you and I had a chance, Josh, to talk about the strategic thoughtfulness and like, scaling, I would love to know sort of, Shannon, you're someone who has made that commitment. You've gotten involved. You've helped that sort of co-creating. So yeah, if the two of you could just sort of talk about that from your various perspectives. And I would think that there is room to grow and scale. And I think that there's ways to do that sort of smartly. And so I just want to sort of push all that your way, given who's on our call today, the audience that we typically have. Like, how can people help carry out this vision well, I think is my question for both.
Yeah, great question. Shannon, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Josh talked about partners in industry doing more than writing checks. And for us, that's really what this partnership is about. Again, with an organization like Neighborhood, writing the check was easy, but the work comes in truly developing a partnership where we are collaborating and providing thought leadership to each other around how to advance this work. And part of it is making sure that, you know, organizations like Neighborhood understand what our workforce needs are, and to really understand the landscape of skills that are required, but then also, you know, help build those curriculums. I mean, it truly is an investment, not just of our treasurer, but our time as well. And having the ability to dig deeper into the work to really cultivate programs that match the needs of industry with the needs of our communities from an economic empowerment standpoint. It's just, I can't say enough how impactful that is, not only for those who get access to opportunity, but it's impactful for our team as well. Again, we find purpose in this work that extends beyond what we do on a day-to-day basis to serve our customers.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the only thing I think I would add to that, Jason, is like, you know, on the practical side, you know, companies that really want to solve their talent challenges, as well as impact the other side of that tragic gap, I think they just, number one, need to get involved earlier. You know, they need to help shape the training that's going on. They need to offer site visits. They need to be able to mentor participants. You know, they need to think about adjusting their hiring practices. Who comes in? How do they get in? Again, just kind of creating a process and hoping people find it is not a good strategy for a lot of people that don't know that that exists or have no ability to find that, or you know, the list goes on there. And so I think there's also a commit to interviewing from these new pipelines, a very intentional mindset shift to say we are going to hire from this particular pipeline. That kind of commitment is needed. And so I think what happens is a lot of organizations or businesses think that they have to like stand up their own program to do this. And I don't think you have to necessarily have your own program, but you do have to partner like it matters. When businesses step in as like co-creators, they're not just solving hiring, they're really building a workforce that's ready and stable and rooted in something bigger than just the job itself.
Amazing. It is, yeah, I really appreciate both of those answers, and it really does just underscore how much you two have found each other. And it seems like there's many, many employers. I know you're already working with Josh, but I think this is just a great opportunity to amplify these things. Speaking of our amazing audience, I want to start to shuttle some questions toward you, but I may, you know, be unable to help myself and jump back in with some more of mine. So our first one is, and I believe this is for you, Josh. Does your organization offer support for entrepreneurship in your community with an understanding of how it can improve the economic position of your community?
Great question. So at the moment, we don't have a lot of entrepreneurship built into our existing structure. Right now, you know, Neighborhood is in its 8th year of doing workforce development in this way. Entrepreneurship is certainly a part of that. So in the future, we hope to stand up an entrepreneur accelerator that really taps into the entrepreneurial spirit of so many of our program participants that are coming in that want to take that track. To get things moving here at Neighborhood, we dove into some existing pathways that was really needed for us. And so we've kind of taken that track right now. We work alongside very closely with our local workforce council here in Hampton Roads to identify some of our region's top priorities. And that was really the emphasis to kind of get all this going. But I actually can't wait. I really appreciate that question because I can't wait for that entrepreneur accelerator to really dive into that side of the world.
Fantastic. Thank you. And our next question is, could you speak more about how you're incorporating lived experiences? I think that really resonated with our audience into the workforce development, and how this approach can serve as a model for other businesses who do the same. And Shannon, maybe just to tee you up a bit, like, I'd be curious to know if you see any other, as we discussed, you sit in many places, but if you see the sort of lived experience manifesting in this way anywhere besides neighborhood, like, do you see that? Because I agree that strikes my ear as very unique. And so I'm curious, about your approach, how you're thinking about that. And then how unique is that? Like, is that something we see many places, or is that, because I have not heard of this until meeting neighborhoods.
Yeah, do you want that for me or do you want that for Shannon?
You start us off. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the lived experience thing is something really that needs to be thought through a lot more. So, like in general, real world experience. Companies that value an individual that comes in that they might not match the formal credentials that are on paper. But when you think about an individual that's coming in, maybe that's a single mom, maybe that is someone with a different type of background. What are the real world experiences that connect to that formal credential that's needed? Oftentimes, experience doesn't really show up on a resume. And so, individuals are bringing resiliency and resourcefulness and problem solving skills that often are just not going to show up on a resume. And we work so neat and tidy off those resumes that I think it just excludes far too much what individuals have lived, the experiences, and so much of the asset that they would be to a company through what they've experienced in the world. I don't know, Shannon, if you'd add to that.
Yeah, so, Jason, you asked if I thought neighborhood approach is unique, and I would say yes. I have seen community college institutions, for instance, give credit for work experience. I have seen veteran programs really focus on translating experience in military service into careers outside of the military. But what I haven't seen is what Josh is talking about. Those things that are not easily, without taking time to really be thoughtful about it, to put into a resume. It's those non-resume type experiences that Josh is helping the folks who are going through his program translate into work experience, but also helping employers to understand how the lived experience can be an asset to our organizations.
Jason, can I add one more thing to that?
Of course, yes.
What so many of our program participants come into neighborhood and what they may lack in traditional credentials, they more than make up for in proven adaptability and grit. And companies need to see this. They need to tap into that. They need to ask about it. They need to value it. And so I think that was really the heartbeat behind that for me.
And those are things you can't teach necessarily. Having grit and being adaptable happens through experience.
Right.
Again, Josh, and finding ways to tap into those intangibles and things that there's really no training program for is a very unique and innovative approach to cultivating the workforce.
Thank you for those answers. Yeah, I know, well, and it feeds well into our next audience question, but I know Virginia Natural Gas also recently invested $620,000 into workforce development in the area. And I'm sure there's many worthy programs all doing great things, but I do feel like, yeah, this neighborhood model is something unique. And so, with that in mind, can you tell us about how well are you collaborating with existing state workforce development initiatives in your area, such as Virginia Works? And, because I know, Josh, when we first met, I was immediately asking you about scaling. That's where, like, you were very strategic and thoughtful. and have been through the life of your operation about when's the right time to do that, how to do that intelligently. And so I like I say, I'm sprinkling my own sort of thoughts around our audience question here. But yeah, it's like Shannon, you have this statewide view with Blueprint 2035. I just think you're a couple of great guests for us today to think about, yeah, how do you partner with statewide initiatives, and how are you thinking about scaling? And I'd love to hear about that from both of your perspectives.
Well, for us, again, we try to identify organizations who are not just doing the work, but have impact that is measured. And Josh mentioned earlier the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. That is another organization that we partner with, and we support their foundation to make sure that, again, the workforce in Hampton Roads has the necessary skills to support our growing economy in Hampton Roads. We also participate in efforts by the Virginia Chamber. The Chamber also has a foundation, and we support their efforts, including Blueprint Virginia 2035. And for those who don't know what Blueprint Virginia is, the Virginia Chamber Foundation since 2013 has put together a process to bring business leaders from across the Commonwealth to dialogue and to have input into a business plan for Virginia that is presented to the next governor. And so we're in that process now. And several leaders at Virginia Natural Gas are participating in various committees in that process. And so again, for us, it's beyond writing the check. It's really providing thought leadership and perspective that we have in making sure that we are creating opportunities for all Virginians to thrive and to be a part of the economic growth and prosperity that's in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Shannon. I mean, I think for neighborhood, and Jason, as you mentioned, you and I have talked a little bit about, for us, neighborhood is not the answer to this. We are a part of the solution. And so for us, being a good part of that solution is helping connect dots and draw people together, and in one sense, build that economic superhighway. And so we're doing that right now, specifically through our local Hampton Roads Workforce Council. We work heavily, strategically with them, but we're also working with Go Virginia. We're working with Virginia Works. We've had a really great relationship with Senator Kane's office, and their group has gotten involved in the work that we're doing here and making investments into neighborhood and Hampton Roads. And so for us, those partnerships are just key. And then, that's kind of the bigger, broader partnerships, but then our employer partnerships locally, our community partners and other nonprofits. So partnerships for us, which is really kind of the heartbeat behind this call, partnerships for us are really the way this all moves forward.
That's wonderful. Thank you again for both of those answers. It really makes sense. And I know our audience is thinking, how can we help? How can we get involved? Like what? And, I think you both spoken very thoughtfully to it's an investment and it's a commitment, and in a good way. Like it's a valuable partnership. So our next question is, hold on. The most significant barrier to innovative talent and workforce acquisition is how can companies hold their talent acquisition teams to think differently as they screen applicants? So you were getting at this a bit, because it's, you've talked about the sort of developmental piece that you're, and bringing the worker, if you will, into the story, but there is the sort of employer element. And so they're sort of saying, how does the existing HR information infrastructure how can you help change that and change how people are thinking about that?
Shannon, do you want to start with that?
I'll start.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we as employers need is continued education to help us think about things differently.
Mm,
From those who are out there doing the work each and every day. And that's why the partnerships are so important, because we need help in thinking about workforce needs differently and workforce qualifications. And again, some of those intangibles that we may not have always traditionally thought of, because you often hear that we have workforce constraints, but I question whether we have workforce constraints versus whether we're just not always thinking about the workforce more broadly and trying to understand who's missing from the conversation and from the pipeline.
yeah, that's really good, Shannon. I mean, I would add to that and say, in a lot of ways, I think there is a general unfortunate narrative, that low-income communities are a gap in our economy. And so they often get missed then when we're looking at our pipelines into employment. And so HR teams and things like that need to be better trained in understanding that these low-income communities are not a gap in our economy. They're the foundation of a better one. And so when we are investing in creating new pathways into a company, we are designing something now around the realities, the strengths that these individuals possess that often just gets missed and overlooked. I would say the exact same thing, not even just on the employers, but I would say that really in our training pathways. Our training pathways, we do all this really great work of standing up these regional training pathways, and yet many low-income communities have no understanding that those even exist. And so again, we just create a lot of pipelines with the hope that people are going to find it. And I think we need to flip that around and create them in the communities for the communities to get access to the training and the jobs.
Wonderful. Thank you. Our next question is, while workforce development, and this is a bit for both of you, though I'm curious which one of you wants to dive in first. While workforce development initiatives appear to be yielding strong results in some parts of Virginia, can you speak to the challenges these programs face in rural areas? For instance, I'm aware, this is our audience member says, I'm aware of a phlebotomy training program that has successfully graduated many students, yet many have struggled to secure employment due to a lack of work experience, despite completing the required clinical hours. So they found the program, they completed the program, and now, they're having this final step, if you will, of the securing the employment. What factors might be contributing to this disconnect between training and jobs in rural communities, specifically?
I mean, I don't mind jumping in real quick, Shannon. I mean, I'll just offer a quick thought. The person asking that question really tapped into two of the big ones that I think are key. I mean, the trainings themselves. So I've been working with a group that is looking at standing up maybe even a neighborhood program in a rural area. And one of the concerns is that there's not a lot of training itself in that area. So getting people connected to the training itself is very difficult. And then the other side of that question is that even if you get people trained, and we find this a lot at neighborhood, you get them trained and employers want people with experience, which is understandable. And so a lot of people then get trained and they don't get hired because they don't have the experience. And so in a lot of ways, we need the training providers in place, but there also needs to be some mentorship and some internships that are created to give people on-ramps into the job itself. And a lot of that mentorship and internships just don't exist. And so that's kind of my first piece to that I think those are a few concerns that they really hit spot on.
So I grew up in a real rural community. I grew up in Surrey County, about an hour east of Richmond. And when I think about some of the challenges around rural communities, I also think about logistics. So if the training is in Chesapeake or Norfolk, are there some transportation logistics? It takes, almost an hour to get to that training, and then to get to that training. And then the other issue could be, well, if I'm in training, I'm not necessarily working. So how do I continue to pay for my family needs if I'm in this training program that may not have a stipend that can cover my my family needs? And so that's not just a rural issue, but those are some of the logistical challenges I think that we have to continue to figure out how to address to make sure that the opportunity is actually logistically feasible for a broader population of folks.
Jason, real quick to follow up on what Shannon's saying there. So the logistics are really on both sides, as Shannon is talking about, that yes, there needs to be the logistics in place of like actually having the trainings accessible, but on the individual side, the logistics of being able to get to where those are, for neighborhood, one of the ways that we address that is we provide a stipend for everyone that's in our program. Right now, that stipend sits at $350 a month. We're looking to get that to $500 in the fall and up to $750 a month next year. And so just putting money in people's pockets while they're doing training to help with a lot of those logistics that Shannon is talking about is really a key concept for us that's really missing and is needed.
Yeah, that's an amazing way to try to solve some of the, because as you mentioned, the who knows what some of the obstacles might be, but those stipends I imagine can resolve a number of them, whatever they may be. So thank you. Next question. How does Virginia Natural Gas measure the success and long-term impact of its job readiness and educational programs in the communities that it serves? So thinking about, you just maybe another, I'm sure, investment in the area. How do you go about measuring to make sure, oh, that really panned out, or how do you think about that?
In a number of ways. At a real basic level, how many of the participants in a program actually get matched with employment, and then once they are employed, are they staying employed and growing with the company? And I do think that neighborhood does a great job in measuring impact, but I also think that lots of organizations are still work in progress around measuring impact, but certainly, data is important, and how many folks are actually getting the job, and again, how many folks are staying in the job and growing with the company. Neighborhood and Josh are trying to make sure that its participants are set up for careers, and that means longevity. And so measuring that is how we see impact. But again, there's some impacts that those intangibles as well, just in terms of what it does to the stability of a family when the head of the household has a stable career where they can grow and they have benefits that their household could also take advantage of. And so I do think there's some opportunity to try to figure out how to measure that next level of impact on the household, in addition to the participant who gets to join a particular organization for employment.
And it's the job. I want to say this as well. It's my job. It's neighborhood's job to not tell Shannon and Virginia Natural Gas, just trust us on this.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I mean that. I mean,
Yeah.
data is so it's at the heartbeat of neighborhood, and so we track everything, and so we track all of our program participants up to 3 years after graduating, so that we can go back and show the impact to Virginia Natural Gas and so many of our other partners to say, this is what this investment is doing. This is the transformation. It's measurable. And here's the data to back that up. So it's not the response. So Shannon has all of her ways of looking through that for her company, but it's on us to make sure that we're providing the data and the proof that it's working.
It's amazing. Yeah, and just, I mean, we've got one last question for you all, and but I have to champion you. One of the things you mentioned is that in your tracking of alumni and neighborhood completers, that you've had them come back as mentors. So you mentioned that mentorship piece. Like, I really think that is just showcasing, you know, that another measurable of success for sure.
Well, to your point, Jason, the individual in the video is now back as a mentor for this class, and her stability and her joy and her life is now giving back to the next group of people. So to your point, that's exactly what keeps happening.
Incredible. Okay, last question. We wouldn't be the Wilder School if we didn't highlight our values here. So, and we've got you, Shannon. But you know, Josh, you may have to chime in here too. But can you tell us, what role do you believe industry leaders should play in closing equity gaps in education and workforce access? That's obviously dear to our hearts, and we'd love to know how you see it.
I believe that the business community, we have no choice but to be leaders in promoting economic empowerment. And again, it's not just because we want to fuel our own workforce, but again, I go back to one of our principles at Virginia Natural Gas, and that's being a citizen in the communities that we have the privilege of serving. If we're going to be a citizen, then we can't sit back and let others do the work. We have to roll up our sleeves and do the work also. And when our economy thrives, a byproduct is that we thrive also as a company. But again, we believe it's our responsibility to have impact that's bigger than our bottom line. And so we don't have a choice. It's our obligation and our responsibility, and we really take that to heart. We have to be a leader in progress, and it takes partnerships to do that, and to be very thoughtful and strategic about those partnerships.
Did you want to add anything, Josh?
That's so good. That's so good, Shannon. Yeah, I mean, I would just say, for me, like, workforce development is the engine, economic opportunity is the outcome, and equity is what makes sure that that outcome is available to everyone. And so when companies design jobs and training and hiring pipelines with access in mind, that can be from anything from transportation and background policies, flexible onboarding. That's really where equity and opportunity align together. And that is, I think, the sweet spot. And I think that's really what we're all looking to find that place.
You know, Josh talked about the engine. Well, we believe that industry, we must be the fuel in order to make sure that the engine stays running and that we can continue to drive toward progress.
Well, thank you both so much. I think that was the perfect note to end on. Yes, I'll turn things back over now, but really appreciate, yeah, just the time to get to chat with you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Josh, Shannon, and Jason, for a great conversation. And I love how Shannon ended this. I'm fueled up now. You know, I love that we were able to tie this all in. What amazing conversation. I want to thank our dean. I want to thank our communications team behind the scenes who are making this thing go. We do meet several times before we get on here, and they're the ones who are keeping these lunch and learns going smoothly. I want to thank everyone for joining us for your lunch period. I want to also encourage you to save the date for our next Lunch and Learn, which is on July 16th. We're excited to have Dr. Pulani Lucas, who's the president and CEO of Policy Pathways, discuss introducing Uncounted, a civilian-led approach to in-custody death transparency. This should be a very in-depth and great conversation for you to join. So please join us on July 16th at 12 for your lunch break then as well. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a great one.